I'm going to make a try here, talk about democracy. This concept that actually the collective West talks all about all the time. Democracy, bring democracy to the whole world. What we find out is most of the collective West, when you look at the level of satisfaction, is very, very low. Especially compared to Russia and China, there's a very mistrust when it comes to the institutions. Probably the reason is that there were elites. Whoever wrote the rules of the game were elites. So the idea here is that once you write the rules of the game, you can control the game. So there's a movement in France called the Yellow Vest, les Gilets jaunes. And basically they came up with some very interesting concept. One of the concepts is that they differentiate. There's two concepts. One is voting and electing. Electing, you are electing someone who is going to work on your behalf for the next 4 to 5 years and is going to vote for the laws. So you elect someone who's going to vote for laws. And voting is when you vote for laws. But that requires direct democracy, like you have in Switzerland, for example. It's what we call referendums. Or actually, not only in Switzerland we have referendums. Those referendums, they need a certain amount of signatures, and then you can vote to change laws. Because sometimes you don't want to give this right, this duty to the parliament. Sometimes you can bypass it. Because you see, the problems we have in most of Western democracies is that we give the power to the parliament, but very often they do not follow the wish of people. So here, when you have referendum rights, you can bypass them. So that's what we have in Switzerland. So the concept they wanted in France, the Yellow Vest, was to introduce the RIC. It means the Referendum d'Initiative Consultative. So basically, it's a system of referendum. You gather signatures, and then you can bypass the parliament, and you can actually vote for laws. The idea is to have the population to participate, because you see, the worst thing is when you elect. Just think about for 1 second. When you elect someone, you are actually forfeiting your rights, democratic rights. Because you see, if you are being responsible, you would want to vote for the laws, right? It is kind of irresponsible actually to elect someone and it's like, oh, you know what? I did my duty. The next 5 years I have nothing to do. That's my duty as a citizen. No. If you are complaining about the system, you should be involved in the system. You should actually learn about the situation, the laws that actually affects you. So you see, when you have that system, you can elect people that are going to do the job, but at the same time you can bypass them. Well, those people that are doing the job for you, they are going to start to listen to you. Of course, because if you don't, you can actually revoke them. Because again, this direct democracy, you can actually revoke the people that you elected if they don't follow your wishes. Because you see, most of the time we elect people that are actually not listening to what we want, but they are going to listen to whoever financed them. And that's the main problem we have in the West. That's the money which is involved into politics. And ultimately, those elected people, they are going to listen to who pays, not us. They need our vote. But once we elect them, they don't need us anymore. So in France, they had also this approach to say, well, again, what is important is that we need to be able to write the rules of the game, because that's the key. So that is a very complicated matter, but you need to have assemblies, people actually that work together to actually make again the rules of the game. because the game is rigged. You see, media are in the hands of the globalist elites. They get together and they have an agenda, and they are going to shape the perception of people. Then you have money into politics. Once you are in the US, it's unlimited what they can put into politics. And they have actually legalized corruption. Now in the US, they call it lobbying. But you know, the same lobbying, if it was done in China, well, those politicians will go to jail for that. Now look at, do they represent us? I like to take the example of France, because of the US, because that's an easy one. Look at those people that are in the Congress. Mitt Romney is worth $200 million. Nancy Pelosi, she's $160 million worth. The list is long. It's very long. Probably the poorest in the Congress might be worth like $5 million. I think maybe it might be like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is only $5 million. But you see, they became millionaires not because of their salary. And then all politicians, there is a system of the revolving door. You see, for the corruption, when you have a mandate, you are not going to get the money during your mandate. Actually, it's deferred. So you are in the public sector, and then you leave, you go to the private sector. You know, we see like generals, you know, in the army, while they go from being general, then they go to a Raytheon, they make a lot of money, then they go back to the army, and that's the same for other politicians. So we have a lot to do. But it is important that we understand our own system. And again, I need to go back to also one of the fundamentals of democracy is sovereignty. Because sovereignty, because democracy is a process of self-determination. If you do not have sovereignty, anything you talk about when it comes to democracy doesn't make any sense. Democracy, power to the people. Well, if the decisions, like in Ukraine, if the decisions are made in Washington, in which way is Ukraine a democracy? It is not. So this is why you have a lot of countries that actually are enacting national security laws. They are making sure that the information space is protecting their national sovereignty. Because you see, a lot of people, they think in terms of sovereignty, they think about the land. Oh, that's my border. I need to protect my border. No, it goes much further than that. It's information space. You need to make sure also that there's no NGOs, Western NGOs in your countries that are going to finance you politicians, you media, influence your politician. You need to check that your politicians, did they go through a vetting system? Maybe by the globalist young leaders, by George Soros. They take them when they come out of university. If they're good, if they have a potential, they give them money. I give you grants. And then I own you. And then they groom them. But if all politicians in your country, they were actually financed by the US, like Macron, Edouard Philippe, the Prime Minister of France, but Macron was actually selected by the French American young leaders. And he was actually just before that working for Rothschild Bank. He was actually selected by Jacques Attali, someone who's very influential in the New World Order with the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group. So you see, it is very important for people just to understand those basic concepts, but just that single difference, electing and voting. Because again, if we are complaining about the system and that all politicians are not following what we want, that's maybe you are part of the fault. But maybe they made sure that you are not interested in that. They made it boring, they make it complicated, which is not. Remember, election and voting are different. Electing is actually giving up your democratic right to vote. What they don't want, what those globalist elites don't want, was to people to understand hard work. They want people to stay numb. They want people to watch Netflix, porn, drink alcohol, take drugs, take fentanyl, and to be numb, numbness. People are slave. They have 3 jobs. They are in a survival mode. That's what they want. So it is important just to understand those concepts, and also, well, keep in mind also that the system itself is made in order just it's a divide and conquer system. What they want is to divide people over identity issues. Are you for abortion or against abortion? Are you, like, let's say BLM? Are you BLM? Are you going to focus on the Black Caucus? You are going to focus on whatever is, there's a black leader. You're going to follow him just because he's black. In reality, that's what they want, because what they fear the most is that the 99% are going to raise against the 1%. It is not a fight against the left or the right. It is not a fight about those ism boxes. Ultimately, it's a fight of the 1% against the 99%. And that system, they made sure that they divide us as much as possible. See, the problem is that there's no division. If people just realize that the two parties are the same, then they will raise up. They will be like, no, we don't want that. But you need to give an illusion that, well, that's the Republicans against the Democrats. That's an illusion. And the more it feels divided, the better they control you. They need to split votes. They need to split unions. I like once in the U.S. You had actually the Black Panthers that actually allied with the far right. Kind of, they call them a white supremacist. But back then they realized one thing: what do we have in common? In common, we have that we are they forgot about us. We are the poor of the society. The whites, they were like what they call the white trash. Then the black from the ghettos. And they realized, they started talking to each other, and they realized, well, we have so much in common. We are seeking exactly the same thing. I like to say that Chinese, they say, look for what unites us and set aside the differences. So if people had the maturity just to realize that what is the most important. You see, we have now the global south that is doing exactly the same thing. You have countries that are joining together because they realize that there's one main fight that they need to fight together. You see, BRICS, you have India and China. They're not friends, but they know that they need to ally to defeat this neo-colonialism, this new world order that is actually not for the people but for the globalist elites. And because that purpose, that new world order is about destruction of nation state, centralization of command. So you see, China and India are mature to say, well, we have differences, let's put them aside and work for what unites us. When in terms of politics, it's exactly the same. People need to sit down and say, what unites us? What do we have in common? And you realize people have exactly the same common goal. It doesn't matter which nationality too. If you talk to a Chinese, a Russian, or an American, he wants to have a family, he wants to raise kids, he wants to put food on the table, he wants healthcare, he wants a nice quality of life, he wants a disposable income to increase through time. He wants to say, well, there's more productivity, well, do I have better income because of this increase of productivity? do have dignity. And you see the rest, does it really matter? I mean, LGBT, what happens in your bedroom, it stays in your bedroom, right? uh, Climate, of course. Well, we all care about climate, but again, we need to look at priorities, and very often all those issues, including climate change, you need to look who's funding. When you have a oil company which is funding climate change stuff, you need to be very skeptical, really, because they can buy scholars, university, and so on. They're very powerful. So I think one of the main thing to retain is that people need to get informed, and they don't want that, because knowledge is power. Once people have the awareness, you see, awareness of what? It's what we call class consciousness. Once you realize that we are from the same class, 99% of us are from the same class, the workers' class, then you have class consciousness. That single fact, they don't want that. They are turning this into an identity politic strategy. So people forget that they are from the same family, the 99%. And they need to be empowered. Because again, if you believe in democracy, demokratos, power to the people, it's about empowering people. So what is the most important really is just to unite forces, and to learn foundations, really foundations. Go from sovereignty, writing the rules of the game, understanding, electing, and voting, and just build up this knowledge, so we can, then when people are really talking about democracy, those people, those clowns that want to export democracy at the end of the world, they talk about the Constitution. Even the Constitution, they don't even know, they haven't read the Constitution. But what I'm saying is that get the foundation. Once people get the foundation, maybe everything will change. And most important, don't get stuck into ideology boxes. Once you put yourself into a box, I'm a socialist, I'm a capitalist, I'm a libertarian, or whatever, you put yourself into a box. It's us and them. We should not talk about those labels. Get away from those labels. So again, please like and share. I hope it was informative. I'm just average Joe trying to share, trying to have an approach on the very humanistic level, because we are, it's not about making it too complicated, making this very simple, and just look from the human perspective, because knowledge, is good to understand oneself and to understand others. Why are we in this situation? Why is society so divided? And once you understand that people are being played, then you become dangerous, because you start to have awareness. Thank you.